the task will become easier. Except for a few thinly covered, fine-textured, coated breeds, the dog's coat is two-ply. It consists of an outer, weather-resisting coat and an inner, close-to-the-skin fluff that holds in the real warmth of the body. The most important shedding, then, is that of the undercoat. When this shed-out occurs at the onset of warm weather, the skin becomes more easily ventilated, and this allows the dog to keep cool. While the outer coat sheds noticeably, enough of it will remain to serve as a sunscreen against burning of the skin and consequent overheating of the body. Even on non-shedding dogs, the coat will loosen up twice a year, both in spring and fall. Clipping close to the body during the summer months defeats the caregiver's intention to make the dog more comfortable by removing the sunscreen and subjecting the skin of the dog to attacks of ants, mosquitoes, flies, and ticks.
Do not bathe an animal with mats in the coat. It only makes things worse. The tangled area will respond like a wool sweater hitting hot water, and the mat will just get tighter after drying. As part of the brush out, dematting may be required. This is necessary where there is severe matting of the coat. Mats and tangles can and must be combed out. Using the last couple of teeth in your comb, gently hold the mat in one hand close to the skin so as not to pull the skin, and knit out the mat a few hairs at a time. Gentle but consistent pulling will work the mat out, or you can use a wide-tooth comb with teeth at least 2.5 inches long. To begin, use the comb to split the mat into manageable strands and then move on to your slicker brush. For a difficult mat, you may cut through it with a pair of thinning shears and then brush it out with the slicker brush.
Caution! Be sure to locate the rectum. Do not brush over this sensitive area. His coat should be completely free of all tangles and mats before soaking it with water. The reason for this is obvious. A matted coat will become more matted after the animal has been immersed in water and therefore doubly hard to brush out. Ideally, the animal should be brushed out regularly. When brushing is done systematically, only a minimum amount of time is required to brush out the dog before his bath. At the same time, this kind of regular brushing eliminates any discomfort the animal suffers from a matted coat. To start, we brush using a good slicker brush or rubber brush depending on the structure and density of the hair. Brushing is the separation of the hair strands that permits the air to get down to the skin and ventilate it. In brushing, it is best to start at the animal's hindquarters. This prevents the dog from seeing what is being done and thus gives him less reason to object to this procedure. In addition, they become more easily accustomed to the grooming process. As a safeguard before beginning, place a rubber mat under the dog to keep him from slipping and sliding. When brushing, hold part of the dog's coat with one hand to relieve the tension. Begin by brushing the rear leg first, moving upward and then downward in short, fast strokes. Brush thoroughly up and then down, and be sure to get underneath the surface coat. Feel for any mats or tangles with your hand, and then run a comb through the dog's coat. If his coat is tangle-free, proceed to the next leg and then repeat the process. Then move on to the tail, then his top line, the abdomen, front legs and armpits. Don't forget those. Chest, neck, head, be careful of those eyes. Muzzle, being careful of the nose not to scrape it. Then finally, the ears. To start, we brush using a good slicker brush or rubber brush depending on the structure and density of the hair. Brushing is the separation of the hair strands that permits the air to get down to the skin and ventilate it. In brushing, it is best to start at the animal's hindquarters. This prevents the dog from seeing what is being done and thus gives him less reason to object to this procedure. In addition, they become more easily accustomed to the grooming process. As a safeguard before beginning, place a rubber mat under the dog to keep him from slipping and sliding. When brushing, hold part of the dog's coat with one hand to relieve the tension. Training your animal to lay on its side begins at puppyhood. This training can be very beneficial to the animals that are short-legged or heavily coated and require long periods of brushing. Animals with thin or limited coat will take less time to brush than those with double coat and density.
To start, we brush using a good slicker brush or bristle brush. Brushing is the separation of the hair strands that permits the air to get down to the skin and ventilate it. The brush, if properly selected, has a burnishing effect upon the hair, giving it a live and glistening appearance, and it does, to a very limited extent, promote hair growth. But brushing is not as efficacious as many seem to think. In other words, it cannot by itself produce a good crop of hair. Unless the body is fortified by good substantial food, and unless typical coated ancestors back the dog, all the brushing in the world will not grow a single hair. Brush the entire coat using your universal brush or bristle brush depending on the type of coat. Start with the hind leg at the paw. Gently work up and around the leg, lifting and working layer by layer. Next, work the second back leg. Then do the tail. Now, do the top line starting at the neck and working down the spine to the base of the tail. Next, do the sides and abdomen, starting from the abdomen and working up the sides layer by layer. Now do the front legs, remembering to start at the paw and work up the leg in small layers. Check the armpits that often are matted due to coat friction. Next is the chest, starting at the under chest between the legs and working up towards the neck, once again layer by layer. Finally, do the head and ears, being careful not to scratch the eyes and the nose as well as the inside flap of the ears, as these can easily be torn by overzealous brushwork. To proof your work, you will now take your comb and check your work. The best comb for the dog's coat is a 7.5 inch combination comb with a 1 3/8 inch teeth, medium and fine. After the dog is thoroughly brushed out, you should comb through the entire coat. This ensures that all mats and tangles are out. Obviously, if the comb cannot get through the coat, additional brushing will be required. You should be able to comb through the coat using the fine end of the combination comb. Same pattern as for the brushing, working layer by layer: back legs, tail, top line, abdomen, front legs and armpits, chest, neck, head and muzzle, and ears.
To proof your work, use your combination comb with 1 3/8 inch teeth. Coarse coats use a wide tooth comb where the teeth are at least 2.5 inches long. Use the comb to split the mat into manageable strands and then use your slicker brush to break it apart. The spot that you see here that is much blacker than the rest of the coat on the Bedlington is an indication that a wound and a scar has transpired in this spot. Anytime a Bedlington does get injured and the hair damaged, the hair will grow back in a black spot. For a difficult mat, use a pair of thinning shears to chew it apart. Then come in with your slicker brush.
Same pattern as for the brushing, working layer by layer: back legs, tail, top line, abdomen, front legs and armpits, chest, neck, head and muzzle, and ears.